a lovely service in River Hibbert for Davis Day today. And back in Spring Hill, we'll observe the service here in Spring Hill at 1 o'clock. And also accompanying me today is my O2 co-op placement student, Rylan, who is taking part in the service today as well.
Now, speaking of that, this may sound harsh, but I don't mean it that way. But there would be a lot of people now who don't know what Davis Day is all about. And to put it into quick perspective, it goes back into the days of the development, if you will, of the union movement. It was running at the time, and noticed in particular in the mining sector. And during a strike in Cape Breton, a man by the name of William Davis was shot and killed by what they called at the time company police officers. And we know that the mines back in the day were literally owned, the towns rather, where the mines were located, were literally owned by the mine company. And they had their own police, they had their own stores, they had their own houses, they had their own everything. They controlled it all. And the need for balance was never made more clear, and the balance, of course, came from the unions. William Davis became the figurehead for this. That, by the way, was 1925, 100 years ago. And that's what we said.
100 years ago today. Today, actually, Bill.
Exactly.
100 years ago today, yes.
Yeah, and that's what this is all about. And, of course, with Spring Hill being a major mining town over the years and so on, this is close to heart. But it goes beyond just coal mining. It has roots in the further development of the union movement and the balance of power in the world. And you could go in so many directions to talk about why we should celebrate this. Indeed, why we should talk about this. Am I right?
Absolutely, and it was because of the mines, and it's even more important to Spring Hill, as many of the listeners may or may not know. Bill Davis's brother was actually succumbed to injuries from an explosion in the mine in Spring Hill. So his family actually lived in Spring Hill for a while as well, and his mother and father. But his brother died in one of the explosions in Spring Hill. So there's a close connection to the Davis family in Spring Hill as well. And as you said, in New Waterford 100 years ago today is sort of the marking of Davis Day, or Miners' Memorial Day. And in 2008, the government of Nova Scotia actually made a proclamation to recognize June as Miners' Memorial Day. But as you said, it goes a lot further than just the mining aspect. Labor standards and safety regulations, pay requirements. So there was a lot of the movement of the protests from the miners that have overfilled in their occupation since 1925, Bill.
Now, speaking of that, New Waterford, Glace Bay, the real coal mining sector of Cape Breton and the heart of Cape Breton County, when we talk about Cape Breton, there's two. The island of Cape Breton, much of what goes on and what gets talked about is excluded in places like Richmond County, Port Hawkesbury, a bit of Inverness, and so on. But the Cape Breton County, that's the Cape Breton we hear about all the time. And back in those days, the mine companies owned it all, so to speak. Was it anything like that in Spring Hill?
Look, I'd be the wrong person to speak about the history of the coal mine in Spring Hill. As I was speaking with one of the attendees this morning in River Hibbert, I can remember starting to learn about the Spring Hill coal mines in grade 2, 3, and 4 in my elementary days, which wasn't yesterday, Bill. But it was actually a music class where I was learning some of the history because of the song "Spring Hill Mine Disaster" that you would learn in music class back in those days. But there were certainly company houses and company operations in Spring Hill, and as we know, there was a lot of devastation in Spring Hill with the mining companies, with explosions, 2 major bumps, and but a lot of history and a lot of what has built these mining communities. And I know that when people think of mining in Nova Scotia, they often run their minds to Cape Breton, to Pictou County, into Spring Hill. But River Hibbert and Joggins were front and center of the coal mining, and there's even a little bit of a research going on by I don't want to call an amateur historian, because they do quite a bit of history, and I don't want to speak for them, but they're actually researching and making arguments that Joggins might possibly have been the first site of a coal mine in North America at one time. So there's a lot of rich history within the coal mining in Nova Scotia. And now we know today all mining sectors recognize Davis Day, or Miners' Memorial Day, if you will, on July 11th.
And indeed, and that's what it's all about, understanding the labor movement in Nova Scotia and indeed in Canada. When we talk about the mine companies owning the towns, as I say, they owned the houses, so they would rent the houses to their mine workers. They owned the stores where people would go and shop. The miners would shop at the local mine grocery store, for example, would use credit, waiting to get their paycheck from the mine. And all of this became a kind of vicious circle where they owed their rent and they owed their grocery bill to the company. And, that put them, really under the thumb of the company. And, they worked hard in the mines, no question. They didn't get paid overly well. And the protection in going underground was not there. And it was the development of the unions that were able to finally break this stranglehold. You talk about inequality. They finally were able to bring some equity to the job, if you will, the job of mining, by breaking this whole ability to kind of hold the mine workers at bay because they owed money for either the roof over their heads or the food they ate. That's all changed thanks to the union movement, or the labor movement, if you want to call it that. And it's really quite a shame that we have to stop and take a look at a man getting shot and killed by so-called police 100 years ago to draw our attention to such inequality. And so there's more at stake to this Miners' Memorial Day than just the memory of one man.
Well, you just what you said there, Bill. Put your mind in perspective, and I think it's worth reading. But working for these companies, the companies owned the mines, the companies owned the stores, owned your houses at many times. And when you were talking there, I'm a big fan of local musicians and folk music, country music. But if there's a Nova Scotia artist that comes out, I want to hear it. I want to hear the music being played. But it brings my mind back to the Men of the Deeps, and there's a song that they actually sing on most of their concerts, and I can't remember the name of the song, but I know the lyrics, and one of the words is, "I owe my soul to the company store." And it certainly puts it in perspective. But us sitting here in 2025, it's really hard to comprehend that a given day that you would work for a company and receive your groceries from a company and go to live in a company home, and at the end of the day is very little bit of the paycheck that's given back to you. And there's been a big change since 2020 or 1925 to now in 2025.
When you talk about that song, and in particular the Men of the Deeps, who were all themselves coal miners from Cape Breton at the time, and a 25, 30-year kind of career with the Men of the Deeps, Rita McNeil playing a key role with many a concert with them, and many a song, in fact, written by folks from the Men of the Deeps and Cape Bretoners that became part of their repertoire. The song you're talking about would have come out of the folk song era, I believe, called 16 Tons. And the lyrics went, "I load 16 tons, and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt." And that's where you talk about the company owning those people, not just the stores and the houses. They, in effect, owned the workers. And that's what had to be broken. And that's why we celebrate this particular day, to remember that you could work all day, load 16 tons, and come home in debt. You're right. What a song that kind of tells it all.
That's right. That's right, Bill. And to bring it back into local, the service in River Hibbert today was recognizing River Hibbert Joggins' time of the mining industry, and it was students that put on this service in River Hibbert School, and it was students that led it. And my co-op student Rylan actually read the resolution that I tabled in the House to recognize the 100th anniversary Davis Day here in our area. And at 1 o'clock, we're going to head to the service here in Spring Hill, and also lay a wreath where they've asked me to read the resolution as well. And it's 100 days today since that horrible day in Cape Breton, but it's certainly worth recognizing not just the loss of a miner, but the actual whole movement as we've been talking about.
Well, the point being that, yes, it's a somber day, a day of somber memory, but good came out of it. And I guess if nothing else can be said, that we can remember that at least, that we've developed some kind of equality. We're not perfect. Nothing is perfect and needs to be reflected on and needs to be reviewed from time to time. But this is one of them, isn't it?
It certainly is, Bill. And it's worth talking about. And it was so nice to see last year when the students of River Hibbert School took on the initiative to take over the service, and they're carrying that on. So it's nice to see the youth taking part and be present at the memorial in River Hibbert, and hopefully this afternoon today in Spring Hill. But not just to be there, but also to be taking part and leading the ceremony as well.
Now, having said that, a few minutes left to talk about the other things going on in Cumberland South, because we know that you're the tour ambassador for activity in the South.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what's really in gear right now is graduation time's coming up, and yesterday a little bit, spent some time drafting my letter that I send to graduates every year. I put a sign up in around the local school, so that'll start this week, but as many people listening know, my oldest boy is graduating this year as well, and it's into prom season too. So prom's coming up on Friday evening, and some celebrations in and around that. So look, I wish them all the best, and I know over the next couple of weeks we'll be talking again about graduations. But as the celebrations come in and around, just look, celebrate yourself, celebrate your achievements, but also do it in a safe manner. And it's a great emotional time, good and bad, but it's time to celebrate, but do it responsibly.
You know, I can't help but say it. You probably are not aware of this, but you're breaking up very much of what you're saying. And interesting, ironic too, that we postponed your interview from earlier this morning because you were in an area of terrible cell phone coverage and you wanted desperately to get back to Spring Hill where we could have a better, clearer talk. And we're not having a better, clearer talk. And all of that on the heels of our conversation last week about your government's commitment to improve that. It can't come fast enough, my friend.
No, absolutely can't. But I guess my message now is just what I said a few seconds ago. It's important to celebrate your achievements come graduation time, but do it in a safe and responsible manner. And I'm looking forward to the ceremonies. But also yesterday we were able to meet up with the NFCC representatives and the municipality representatives on some geothermal projects that we've talked about over the last little bit, and the committee that's formed there to look at some potential that we can drive geothermal even further in the community of Spring Hill and for the municipality of Cumberland. But also coming up this coming weekend is the prom and some celebrations, but also some community events that my wife and I will be taking part in. But I know we just have a few minutes left. But it's Father's Day this weekend, so happy Father's Day to every father figure out there. But something that near and dear to myself is Tracy's and my 21 anniversary tomorrow. And on the 12th, we'll be celebrating 21 years together. So just a happy anniversary to my wife.
Yeah, I'm going to have to start sending you a bill. You send birthday greetings to your children and your anniversary celebration greetings to your wife, and you do all of this on the radio for the whole world to hear. I'm going to send you an invoice. Please.
I'd be pleased to send that out. But as you know, there's a lot of commitment on the road with this job, and I guess I am taking a little bit of advantage of our airtime, Bill. When sometimes I'm not necessarily at home, I'll be away tomorrow during our anniversary. So maybe I am utilizing a little bit of a perk to say a special happy anniversary.
Well, I'm just teasing you, and you know that, of course.
And I certainly know that.
And when I was talking about the poor cell service, I didn't mean you should repeat what you said about the celebrating wisely and proportionately and rightly. I simply wanted to open the door for you to talk about the initiative to fix the cell service, because you're living proof of the difficulties in Cumberland South in particular, and other parts of Cumberland County as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we were, as I said, we were in River Hibbert earlier, where most of River Hibbert geography has zero coverage, and that's one of the areas that in phase one will be tackled with cell coverage. And as we talked last week and before, it's really it's a federal government responsibility. But Premier Houston said enough's enough. If they're not going to tackle it, we're going to tackle it for our residents. So there's a few different phases, but I'm very pleased that Cumberland County. I believe it's 4 different sites that are going to get new towers, and 3 or 4 different sites that are going to get improved signal over the course of a few months, and the new towers have to be erected and put into place and operating by this time next year, is my understanding. So there are some improvements coming, but I will say long overdue.